So hi, my name is Charlie Kimbell. I'm the state representative representing Woodstock, Reading, and Plymouth, Vermont, serving in the Vermont legislature and we're currently in session. And today I'd like to talk to you about the current use value appraisal program, which most people just refer to as current use. Something that's been around since 1978. And at that time, the state decided it wanted to create a system where it made it affordable for people working the land and forestry and farming to be able to stay on their land without being taxed off of it. And also has a dual goal of really preserving open land or wooded landscape, because Vermont's landscape is really unique, and that's what makes Vermont, Vermont. So it has those dual purposes in trying to work through, and there have been several iterations of changes to the program. There's a lot of misconceptions about it, so I just want to describe what it is, and then also a bill that's before the legislature affecting one particular part of the current use program. Now first, about half of all Vermont's land is enrolled in current use. And that seems like a lot, but there's a lot more land that could be enrolled in current use that's not. So what happens is that when a parcel of land, it has to be more than 25 acres of land besides the homestead, is enrolled in current use, then the land is taxed at the value of which it's being used for forestry or for farming. And for forestry, they have to have a 10-year forestry plan that's in effect, and for farming, they have to be actively farming and getting at least $2,800 in income every year from the operations of the farm. So at that point, they're paying a much lower property tax than if it was taxed at the developable value, which is significantly higher. So in total, across the state, that's about $55 million a year in current use expense, 55 to 65 million. So is that worth it? So it's a great question. There are some criticisms against the program. Like, some people have land in current use that also have means to pay the property taxes. So they're getting a break on that. And also, some of the land is not then open for public use. So land that's entered into current use, a lot of the times gets posted for no trespassing and no hunting. And hunting is a Vermont tradition, to be able to go onto your neighbor's land as long as you are respectful for both the neighbor's property and their wishes. So those are some of the criticisms against current use, but you have to think about Vermont puts a value on that landscape, on that open land. So it doesn't matter if it's a needs-tested program from that sense, because it gives a lot more back. And also with the value it brings to our tourism economy, which is huge. And people respect and they want to come visit Vermont because of those open lands and the landscape itself. So there is that part. So it doesn't matter if your last name is Rockefeller or Johnson, then you get the same kind of tax rate on property that's enrolled in current use, because it's how you're using the property. Now, if you want to stop using your property that way and get out of current use, then there's something called a land use change tax. And this is where the legislation comes in that I'm bringing to the legislature. It's called H.134, and it does two things. One is it makes it simpler to calculate the value of the land that's being withdrawn, so that it's easier for property owners to understand what that tax is going to be. There's someone in Woodstock that approached me about land that he was withdrawing because he really needed to sell some land because of his financial obligations and pressures, and he could no longer farm it. But the tax itself was going to be substantial, over $200,000. And he did not really get that value in the reduced property taxes over the 30 years that he had enrolled in the program. So he really thought that was unfair. I happen to agree. So the question is, how do we then make it so that he does not get unfairly taxed, but still have encouragement for people to keep their land in the program? Well, so that's one part, is to calculate it. The second part is to try to make it so that land that's currently in current use could be withdrawn without a penalty if it is going to be used for affordable housing development and close to a village center or downtown development or downtown center or a neighborhood development area. So there is, within half a mile. So I did this one calculation that was, what if the property is adjacent to those areas? And I think there's 190 parcels throughout the state that qualify. I said, well, what if we went out 3 miles from that border town, and there's 14,500 parcels of land that qualify and millions of acres of land. It seemed like it was a bit too far. So trying to come up with a happy medium of half a mile from a village downtown, village center or downtown. And that is what the bill is going before the legislature. It's being introduced into the committee this week on February 18th. So we're really looking at trying to make it so it's simpler for people to withdraw the land from current use if they have to, for whatever situation they're encountering. And the second is to encourage affordable housing, which we definitely need, that's close to those village centers or downtowns or neighborhood development areas. So it works in concert with a bill that was passed last year. It's called Act 181. And that was a bill around Act 250, creating different tiers of development around the state. And that's Tier 1A and 1B, different definitions, a lot of details on that. But it could fit in nicely with those as well to be exempt from Act 250 permits if that development has certain characteristics. So it really is trying to line all these things up to make it easier to do affordable housing and also to withdraw land from current use program. So why is this important? Well, first I think we have to recognize Woodstock's role in land conservation. This was the birthplace of the United States conservation movement, with George Perkins Marsh setting up shop here and then really getting the rest of the country or the world to recognize that we had to do more in terms of land use management. Woodstock is also the birthplace of the Vermont Land Trust. At that point, it was the Ottaquechee Land Trust. And so we have a rich tradition in our community to preserve land for the good for the next generation and preserve the ecological and environmental uses of those properties. So we have to balance that with the needs of our current society, which is housing. And that's what this bill tries to do, is balance those environmental and ecological needs with what we need for our community, which is right now more housing. Trying to do that and thread the needle, as they say, with current legislation, and we'll see if it's possible for the legislature to pick it up. So I want to thank you for this discussion about current use. If you'd like to learn more or just want to get involved in the conversation, I'd love to hear from you. It's not a one-way delivery, it's a two-way conversation. So please send me an email. It's kbellvt@gmail.com, and let's get some discussion going. I'll share with you what I know, what's going on in the state, and I'd love to hear your concerns and what your questions are. Thank you again for spending time with me. I look forward to hearing from you.